it hits different to see a mother of a political prisoner or a missing person crying and waking up every day and hoping to see her son or her daughter, and the day passes, a month passes, a year passes, you see more gray hairs and more wrinkles painting on her face until she dies in misery. Seeing a young girl growing up, and she's the daughter of a political prisoner of a missing person, and you see the toll that it takes to them. And then it goes to the wives. About 3 months ago, we buried the wife of our brother John Bosco Chibanama, my neighbor who was abducted, and she spent 7 years searching for him, demanding for him, and hoping against hope that he would show up one day. She was the most vocal wife of a missing person until she was also found dead in her house. My wife herself, she has tried as much as possible to be the decent and polite version of me, to the extent that she tries as much as possible when and she was right when she talked about the house. So sometimes I talk to myself at home and I quarrel, and she tones me down that by the time I get to speak to the people, I'm less angry. But she was ready in her home when we were put under house arrest. She was beaten, she was stripped naked, filmed and humiliated, and all that. And I thought that is the worst that could happen. But 4 days ago, is it 4 days yet? Maybe 3 days. The wife of the spokesperson of our party, called Uganda, died. She fell sick, the husband was picked up. No clear case while he was put in prison. But those that talk to us of freedom, they say because he talks too much. He was put in prison and denied the right to nurse or see his dying wife. And she passed away. He was even denied the mandatory day to be able to lay his wife to rest. And these are just the random examples that I can pick, but so many examples of people that have had to give immeasurable sacrifices in this fight. Most especially the people that, if you like, are not so involved, our wives, our mothers, our daughters, and our distant relatives. So everybody has had to pay a price, but the price that is paid by the women, most importantly, our women, our wives, is unimaginable. But to see that they still stand firm. When my wife was beaten, while they were demanding for my whereabouts, the first statement she made said, "Bobby, wherever you are, don't show up. Keep running from me." As we clapping, I got concerned. I said, "What is this that I'm married?" Because she was tougher, much tougher than a human being. The same thing that comes from the mothers. Every time I go to see the mothers of the missing people, political prisoners, I go with this heavy guilt on me. But to meet them and they hug me and say, "Son, keep going. I know my son is dead, or I know my son is missing, or I know my son is in jail." But you can only honor him or her by keeping the course. So that keeps us going, and we keep putting one foot in front of the other.
As you were just discussing, following your contestation in the January elections, you both faced intimidation, physical harassment. So we're wondering if you could talk us through how you made the decision to go into exile, because you obviously had to weigh that decision as a family, but also as the leader of the main opposition movement, and there's obviously certain difficulties that come from trying to lead an opposition from abroad. So we were hoping you could talk to us about how you thought about the decision, what you think the challenges are, but maybe also some advantages that you see in.
That'd be what a question. How did we make a decision to go to exile? Did we ever make that decision? Are we in exile?
If you have watched our documentary, there is a section where in 2020 we tried to discuss our lives out of Uganda because there were signs that showed that we couldn't stay in that country the way it was. Now, 2025 was worse, was bad. And in our language they say, Kauka kari kakolomieko.
An insect that has ever bitten you.
When you see it, you run away from it. We have never planned to come to exile. I gave you a starting point. Continue from there.
So she talked about a documentary that was done focusing on us. It is called Bobi Wine, the People's President. Those that have not watched it, I would encourage you to watch it. It's on Hulu. It kind of gives a beginning story. We ran for president in 2021, where we won fair and square. Unfortunately, you clapped, but we did not take the presidency. But we still won. There was brutality, hundreds of people were killed, were put under house arrest. The usual textbook modus operandi for dictators. General Museveni declared himself winner. We were kept under house arrest for a few weeks, and then he swore himself for a few months. We were observed and followed by the military, and somehow things go back to normal. So that was our expectation this time around. We went into this election not expecting to be declared, but we knew that 2021 was basically to awaken the generation that had been detached from politics. We wanted to show them how important it is for them to connect to their politics. And we brag about that success because we succeeded. From the market vendors to the common farmers, to the ordinary ghetto youth in the ghetto, from all corners of the country, the people of Uganda, young and old, educated and illiterate, rich or poor, started paying attention to their politics. We consider that a win. However, we know that we have a government that thrives on division and intimidation. Our country has more than 50 tribes. I come from the most popular tribe, the Baganda. Barbie comes from the western tribe, the Banyankole, where Ggaba comes from. And there has been that narrative of tribalism and division. So we went into this election mainly to unite the people, and we succeeded in doing so. That was the win. However, as soon as the election was ended, it started going down south. In 2021, we had a different army commander. There was a lot of impunity, but I can say they were a little bit more thoughtful. Now, about a year or two ago, the Ugandan president appointed his son to be the chief of defense forces, the military commander. His name is Ggaba. I keep promoting him. Please, when you go on X, formerly Twitter, look for Ggaba. That is General Museveni's son. That is the commander of military forces. If he has not tweeted today, maybe tweeted yesterday, or will tweet tomorrow that I'm looking for Bobi Wine to cut off his basic course. That is what he says. He does not say it for fun. He will threaten citizens and he will follow through and will implement that. Because he promised to abduct and torture my bodyguard, beat him, tortured him, shaved him, and he did that and posted it on social media. When my home was raided, my wife tortured, beaten, and humiliated, he was filming and taking pictures. And 2-3 days later, he tweeted pictures of my wife on the ground with a gunman standing over her. And he was just thinking, this is when you rated Ggaba. You know, when somebody puts a car before your name, it's meaning that you are a small version of yourself. So he calls me Ggaba because he believes I'm a smaller version of myself. Yeah, it would be funny if it wasn't sad. So now that is the commander of armed forces in Uganda and also the son of the president. He is above the law. He does everything. In this election, they killed so many of our people in hundreds, but for him, he tweeted that he had personally he was feeling ashamed because he only killed 24 of my friends and he was praying that on the 25th to be killed. He promised to raid my house and we got inside information that it was happening the day after election. So yes, we were put under house arrest on the 15th of January. As soon as we cast our votes and went back home, our home was surrounded by the military. We were under house arrest on the 15th of January, on the 16th of January. So on the 9th or 16th of January, they started jumping over the fence to get into our compound. I had learned the lesson in 2021, so I very quickly turned into James Bond. And somehow found a way out of my home, so they didn't find me. However, they continued looking for me. About a week later, they raided again, and that's when they humiliated my wife. And we agreed, because I was talking to my wife on phone, we agreed that it was no longer safe for us to leave the country. I advised my wife. She is also not very easy because she was able to escape from her hospital bed and found her way out of the country. I did not leave immediately because I was debating within my mind between leaving my country and staying. Leaving my country would mean going to exile. And here you are, Professor, claiming that I'm in exile. I'm yet to accept that. Maybe I'm still in denial. And I was persuaded, like I'm still persuaded today, that my fight is in Uganda. That I have to be there to inspire, but most importantly, to embolden the millions that are on the ground fighting. But my wife, maybe because she's my wife, and friends, especially in the diaspora, were arguing that they are not dead heroes, and that if I was eliminated, then it would hurt our struggle more than me fighting from afar. And indeed, we had a friend called Alexei Navalny in Russia. He boldly went back to Russia face to me. He's dead now. So knowing that we were facing a lunatic called Ggaba, my friends thought that it was better for me to first exit the country and realign. Make sure we call out the international community, and indeed allow me to use this opportunity to call out the international community, because while this is happening, the United States is in business with Uganda. The European Union and most Western countries are in business with Uganda. So it was important for me to use that voice while it's still there to come and make a case for Uganda, and thereafter I can go and face whatever is there to face. That is when we made the decision to leave our country. Yeah.
Is to do with the mobilization and the strategies that you've been employing in Uganda, especially in the run-up to elections. What's your comment on, what are your thoughts on the status of Uganda's opposition political parties? So the example, in different countries we've noticed that opposition political parties have built coalitions, and those electoral coalitions have ended up unseating long-serving dictators. So in what ways have you built solidarity with other opposition movements in Uganda and also outside of Uganda in different parts of Africa? For example, Zimbabwe is also Chamisa as an opposition political leader, Julius Malema, whom I noticed you've also been in touch with in the past.
Thank you. In Uganda, first and foremost, I think I came in as a very abstract factor in the politics of our country. I was not in politics. I did not participate in politics at school. I was never in politics. So I just showed up as a voice. Now to bring it to speed in Uganda it is not politics, it is struggle. In Uganda, there is no opposition or government. There are oppressors and the oppressed. In Uganda, there are no political parties per se. All this that we're talking about is on paper. I'm talking as a person that leads the main opposition party. Which opposition party will form? Less than a month before the election of 2021, we started out as a loose movement called the People Power Movement. And many times when I'm talking to people, I tell them that we are not a political party. We just have the political party. But we are the liberation movement called the People Power Movement. Now this movement started out after people were frustrated with quintessential politics and politicians. As you will realize, most dictatorships tend to create their own opposition. The good opposition that legitimizes their role. And that is what the case is in Uganda. However, there are people that are anti-status quo. People like Dr. Kizabesi and now people like myself and many that I work with. So in Uganda, because it is the oppressed and the oppressors are both in the ruling party and those existing so-called opposition parties. Many of them, their leaders are working within the system, like the so-called Minister for Constitutional Affairs, Nobel Mao and others. They are in bed with the regime, and they are the ones that are legitimizing the impunity and denying political prisoners. They are political prisoners that were arrested for only wearing a t-shirt that has the word freedom, and they've been in prison for up to 5 years, and the list continues. So when we show that, the message that we've been pushing and continue to push is not a message of this particular political party against this one. We are pushing a message of overturning the status quo, a message of people power, of ensuring that people get a vote. What we want in Uganda is to place power in the hands of Ugandans to make sure that a vote matters, because a vote does not matter. If a vote matters, right now you'll be interviewing me from State House Uganda. So what we're struggling for now is to ensure that democracy reigns again, that people are empowered to vote and for that vote to matter. And this is how we go about it. I'm glad that we have the music. I was fairly popular when I was a musician. I believe I'm still a little bit popular. And that helps us push our music in the unorthodox way. Because we have Uganda is the youngest population, second youngest in the world after Niger. Our median age is 16. We have very young people. And those young people don't necessarily enjoy the form of political talk. That's why our music, our messages have been going through songs and spoken word and skits and poems and all that. And that's how we mobilize to the present day. We mobilize by telling people the truth, telling them not to look at us as politicians, but most importantly, to hold us accountable. Not not to subscribe to any political party, not even the one that I lead, but to subscribe to the truth. We believe that's the best way to hold us accountable and even to immunize us against future impunity and future betrayal of the values that we are professing right now. Oh yeah, thank you. No wonder we are. She reminded me how are we organizing in Africa with other change-seeking forces. I prefer calling them change-seeking forces than political parties. I don't like that one political party. The change-seeking forces in Zimbabwe were pretty close to that brother, Nelson Chamisa, who is the leading opposition personality in Zimbabwe. We are in touch with brothers and sisters in Kenya, in Tanzania. Unfortunately, our brother Tundu Lissu is in prison in Tanzania. Same impunity that was exported from Uganda to Tanzania. We're in touch with our brothers like Bobi Wine, and all those from Kenya. We are in touch with all change-seeking forces in Africa. But I always say that we need to be more in touch, more united, and more aggressive, because the bad guys are working so closely together. So we, the good guys, need to up our game.
Question of youth, because Uganda is a remarkable mobilization of youth in no small part because of your own work. But I was wondering if you could comment on what you see as being the biggest aspirations of youth and why you think the current regime has been so unable or perhaps unwilling to respond to those grievances. And since you're a politician, I also want to ask what you see as the most important policy changes that can be put in place in a country like Uganda to address some of those youth grievances.
I'm sorry, Professor. Is it the English or
I'm just curious about youth and youth grievances in the country and why you think the government has been unable or unwilling to respond to youth grievances, and then what you see as policy changes that you would want to see put in place.
Thank you. You want to go first, Mama?
Why do you think the youth are not being involved in change in their country?
Sure.
In my opinion, I know it's his question, but I like to speak for young people because I work with young people. Young people are a threat. They are a threat to dictatorships because they do not follow the status quo. They want to destabilize everything because they want things to work for them the way they know. And because in most parts of Africa we have dictators whose main job is to keep power by all means, so what they do first is to silence the youth. And now young people do not want to be silenced, and they are loud, and they consider themselves and their futures, so they fight hard. They don't involve them because, first of all, they push hard and they're not going to settle for what is less. They want more, and they want better, and they want it now. And the dictators want the opposite. So it is better to keep their club of the elderly, do things the way they want, and keep the young people out. The only young people involved and included in the circle are those who have been indoctrinated and who show signs of keeping things the way they are right now. So it is, they are kept out because they are young and want better, and these leaders do not want to give it. Yeah, that's my opinion.
Thank you. Maybe just to add on yours, Mama. The people in power back home and largely in Africa are in many ways disconnected from the realities. These are people that took power at my age and they've been in power for 40 years and counting. So they have been, completely disconnected from the realities of the masses. Like Barbie said, their main preoccupation is to keep power, to serve the people. But again, even when they involve young people, they involve either their own children, who don't amount to so much, and then those that are willing to serve their agendas. But most importantly, the young people are disconnected because what is going on back home does not favor them at all. We have the highest level of youth unemployment back home. And if the government is to deal with that, then that means empowering them and getting out of power. So, what they choose is to keep the young people poor so that they can always grapple for the inducements that they give them to sing praises. That is how the regime has been able to subdue young people. And of course, those that have been awakened are only responded to with violence. The government has concentrated on building more prisons back in Uganda and also to, up the violent levels. You asked what our main policies would be. Well, I could spend the whole day going through that. But again, I would not even be half as eloquent as the many presentations that have been made on the floor of parliament, in workshops that have taken so much money. But all this is only as good as the paper on which it's written. Nothing implemented. Why? Because of corruption. Our former president, Milton Obote, used to diagnose Uganda's problem as poverty, disease, and ignorance. Well, in my own opinion, not anymore. I believe our problem is corruption, and corruption. We use up to we lose 10 trillion shillings, like a third of our tax collection to corruption. Who steals this money? The people around the president. Because corruption is currency now. Every major politician has a corruption scandal. And that is what is used to keep them on leash. Our Speaker of Parliament is banned from coming to the US or the UK or Dubai because of corruption. But she is still the Speaker of Parliament. There was a huge scandal where they stole, not money this time, but iron sheets meant for the poorest people in Karamoja. And this scandal involved the Speaker of Parliament, the Vice President, the Prime Minister, the Minister for Ethics and Integrity, and a whole lot of other ministers where they were acquitted. So we want to deal with that. Of course, as an
the president says that they apologized. They were very apologetic. And he saw that from deep down there.
Your family life, and also how have you managed to remain resilient and unwavering in light of all the attacks and harassment and persecution that you faced from the Museveni regime?
Thank you. First of all, I want to apologize for the noise of the sound of the phone. It was Elon Musk. I switched it off. Never mind my jokes. We love to crack a joke every now and then and always argue with Barbie that if we did not have that humor, maybe we would have died of depression. Fighting against a dictatorship, it's something I keep learning about even now. I knew it was dangerous. I knew it would take a toll on everything that we have and we are. I knew we were risking to lose everything, but I did not know the depth to which it would go. Of course, I'm in no place to assimilate myself to the great people like Nelson Mandela, Morgan Shanghai, or even Dr. Kizabesige, who is in prison right now. I'm just another ghetto child who saw that being the only rich guy in a ghetto that has 10,000 poor people, I was just another poor person. So I thought I would take the moral decision to do what is right. That I have never regretted it, and I'm glad my wife never regretted it. The toll that it takes, it goes beyond individual to family, but in the recent days, precisely 4 or 5 days, it again sank to another bottle and continues sinking. For example, as we speak right now,